I am a UK citizen, and I no longer live in a completely free country. I was born in a free country, then something happened. At first, as a younger man, I could say anything I wanted about religion, and the blasphemy laws were obsolete and, although not repealed, could no longer be acted upon in law. Then the hate speech laws came into effect and it all changed. The Public Order Act became a weapon against free speech. Like all oppressive laws, it comes under the guise of best intentions, something that cannot be argued against, like banning Holocaust deniers, homophobes, witch burners, and supposedly people who preach hate and terrorism against the very country that takes them in. But like all tools, the person using it is the one responsible for its actions. On the 11th of April 2011, Sion Owens, a BNP candidate unfortunately, who was previously arrested on the 9th of April 2011, had all charges against him dropped by the Crown because it may be possibly a case of mistaken identity. However, Crown Prosecution Service prosecutor Bryn Herford told Mr. Owens to be in no doubt that investigations into his actions were continuing and that almost certainly other proceedings will ensue. It sounds like a witch hunt to me. This lets me know in no uncertain terms what should happen to me if I went on YouTube and burned a Koran. I would be hunted down, arrested, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I would never be allowed into the United States again once having been arrested, even if charges were dropped. I would not be able to pay my bills, as I would lose my source of income, my credit rating would suffer, and life would never be the same afterwards. What happened to my country that the slow creep of laws curtailing free speech, every one fully supported by the PC establishment, cumulatively came into force to make me hide my face in my own country? Why is it the only people left to protest are unpleasant people from extreme parties that I don't want to have anything to do with? So I started reminiscing what things were like back in the late 80s. I was thinking about what things are like now. You would think a video of someone burning a Koran would be universally applauded in a free speech forum like YouTube. But when the equally unpleasant Terry Jones and his crowd burned a Koran for whatever reason suited them, and deaths in Afghanistan resulted from this, the cry was one of outrage. I listened to the arguments. I've heard Richard Coughlan saying, "Would you deny the Holocaust in the name of free speech?" This is the old "where do you draw the line" argument, suggesting that every place you draw it is slightly wrong, so don't do it at all. Well, I do not accept this argument. The Holocaust was real and killed millions of people. I do not approve of laws that prevent people from saying whatever they want, but in this case I cannot deny it because it's true. If I thought it was not true, I would deny it for freedom of speech. A far more interesting question, Mr. Coughlan, is would I kill for freedom of speech? Denying the Holocaust would be spitting on the memories of 6 million dead people for no real reason. A cartoon, a burning book, all these things are silly things that I have no issue with. If deaths happen over it, the person with the big knife is the culprit. That's why I support any person's right to do it. So I came to thinking, would Salmon Rushdie now be arrested? What he did was worse than burning a Koran. It attacked the content of the Koran, and it came from another Muslim, an apostate no less. People died over this. At that time, Rushdie got government support, anonymity. Today, I think he would be arrested under the hate speech laws. Videos would be made accusing him of the manslaughter of the people who died because of his book. Nobody would be arrested for burning the Satanic verses. The Satanic verses book would probably now be banned in Holland. I can point out a New Testament contradiction where Jesus said he was the Son of Man, and then, in another gospel, the Son of God, and nobody dies. I am not arrested. If I point out Muhammad is not a prophet, I can be arrested, in certain countries, or beheaded if I was of high profile. The interests of my country and my countrymen abroad could be affected. That's why Islam is different. I refuse to say it is only a minority, because it's irrelevant. The effect is there regardless of whether it's a minority responsible or not. I leave you with Salmon Rushdie reciting an excellent piece from the Satanic verses to let you judge for yourself. Would Salmon Rushdie be arrested today?
Amid the palm trees of the oasis, Jibreel appeared to the Prophet and found himself spouting rules, 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 until the faithful could scarcely bear the prospect of any more revelation. It was as if no aspect of human existence was to be left unregulated, free. The revelation, the recitation, told the faithful how much to eat, how deeply they should sleep, and which sexual positions had received divine sanction. Jibreel further listed the permitted and forbidden subjects of conversation and earmarked the parts of the body which could not be scratched, no matter how unbearably they might itch. He vetoed the consumption of prawns, those bizarre otherworldly creatures which no member of the faithful had ever seen. And Jibreel the archangel specified the manner in which a man should be buried and how his property should be divided, so that Salman the Persian got to wondering what manner of god this was that sounded so much like a businessman. This was when he had the idea that destroyed his faith, because he recalled that, of course, Mahound himself had been a businessman, and a damned successful one at that, a person to whom organization and rules came naturally, so how excessively convenient it was that he should have come up with such a very businesslike archangel, who handed down the management decisions of this highly corporate, if non-corporeal, god. After that, Salman began to notice how useful and well-timed the angel's revelations tend to be, so that when the faithful were disputing Mahound's views on any subject, from the possibility of space travel to the permanence of hell, the angel would turn up with an answer, and he always supported Mahound. It would have been different, Salman complained to Baal, if Mahound took up his positions after receiving the revelations from Jibreel. But no, he just laid down the law, and the angel would confirm it afterwards. So I began to get a bad smell in my nose, and I thought this must be the odor of those fabled and legendary unclean creatures. What's their name? Prawns. The fishy smell began to obsess Salman, who was the most highly educated of Mahound's intimates, owing to the superior educational system then on offer in Persia. On account of his scholastic advancement, Salman was made Mahound's official scribe, so that it fell to him to write down the endlessly proliferating rules, all those revelations of convenience, he told Baal, and the longer I did the job, the worse it got. Finally, I decided to test him. After that, when he sat at the Prophet's feet, writing down rules, 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 he began surreptitiously to change things. Little things at first. If Mahound recited a verse in which God was described as all-hearing, all-knowing, I would write all-knowing, all-wise. Here's the point. Mahound did not notice the alterations. So there I was actually writing the book, or rewriting anyway, polluting the word of God with my own profane language. But good heavens, if my poor words could not be distinguished from the revelation by God's own messenger, then what did that mean? What did that say about the quality of the divine poetry? Look, I swear I was shaken to my soul. It's one thing to be a smart bastard and have half suspicions about funny business, but it's quite another thing to find out that you're right. The truth is that what I expected when I first made that first tiny change, all wise instead of all hearing, what I wanted was to read it back to the Prophet, and he'd say, "What's the matter with you, Salman? Are you going deaf?" And I'd say, "Oops, oh God, bit of a slip. How could I correct myself?" But it didn't happen. And now I was writing the revelation and nobody was noticing. And I didn't have the courage to own up, and I was scared silly, I can tell you. Also, I was sadder than I have ever been. So I had to go on doing it. Maybe he just missed out once. I thought anybody can make one mistake. So the next time, I changed a bigger thing. He said Christian. I wrote down Jew. He'd noticed that, surely. How could he not? But when I read in the chapter, he nodded and thanked me politely, and I went out of his tent with tears in my eyes. After that, I knew my days were numbered. But I had to go on doing it. I had to. There is no bitterness like that of a man who finds out he has been believing in a ghost. I would fall, I knew, but he would fall with me. So I went on with my devilment, changing verses, until one day I read my lines to him and saw him frown and shake his head as if to clear his mind, and then nod his approval slowly, but with a little doubt. I knew I had reached the edge, and that the next time I rewrote the book, he'd know everything. That night I lay awake, holding his fate in my hands as well as my own. If I allowed myself to be destroyed, I could destroy him too. I had to choose on that awful night whether I preferred death with revenge to life without anything. As you see, I chose life. Before dawn, I left on my camel and made my way, suffering numerous misadventures I shall not trouble to relate, back to Jahiliyyah. And now Mahound is coming in triumph, so I shall lose my life after all. And his power has grown too great for me to unmake him now. Baal asked, "Why are you sure he will kill you?" Salman the Persian answered, "It's his word against mine." Thank you.